The laughter wasn't friendly. It was sharp, cruel. Her boss leaned back in his leather chair and mocked her words, repeating them with a cartoonish twist on her accent. "Say it again," he chuckled. "We could use a little comedy before the clients arrive." The room roared, executives in $1,000 suits, choking on their coffee with laughter. And in the middle of it all, Maria Alvarez stood frozen, her face hot, her hands trembling. What she said next made the room go silent. Maria had worked for Douglas and Company, investments for 3 years. She had a spotless record, flawless presentations. She caught errors that saved the company millions. But to them, she wasn't Maria the analyst. She was Maria, the one with the funny accent. She had asked again and again for a chance to lead a presentation. Each time, Douglas found a reason to say no. Too risky, too important, too much money at stake. This time was different. The pitch was hers. She had built it from the ground up. Every graph, every forecast, every hidden detail. She knew things about this deal even the senior executives didn't. Yet Douglas laughed in her face. "This isn't high school show and tell, Alvarez. Clients don't pay for accents. They pay for clarity." The room chuckled again, but Maria didn't flinch. She leaned forward, voice steady. 5 minutes. That's all I need. If I fail, I'll never ask again." Douglas raised an eyebrow, amused. 5 minutes? Fine. Let's see what comedy you bring to the table. The clients arrived at 10 sharp. Europeans serious, measured. Douglas strutted to the front like a king, clicking through slides Maria had prepared. First, it seemed smooth. Then, something strange happened. He fumbled. Numbers didn't match. Projections were off. He cited a statistic that Maria knew wasn't in her report. One client frowned. "Mr. Douglas, this doesn't match the data we reviewed last quarter. Are you sure these figures are correct?" Douglas coughed, stammered, shuffled his notes. Maria's heart pounded. Those figures weren't mistakes. They were altered. Her boss had changed her data. "Why?" She raised her hand. Slowly, calmly. "May I?" Douglas smirked. "By all means, Alvarez. Let's see you embarrass yourself." Maria stood. Her voice trembled at first, but then it sharpened. Page 7. "The numbers here aren't projections. They're fabrications. The real conservative estimate is 8.2% growth. Not the 12% my boss just quoted." The room shifted. Heads turned. Clients leaned forward. Douglas laughed nervously. "Don't listen to her. English isn't her." "Page 12, Maria interrupted. "The sensitivity analysis is missing. And without it, this deal is a gamble you should never sign." The air went cold. Douglas froze. The clients demanded she continue, so she did. Slide after slide, she unraveled everything. The real data, the real risks, the numbers they had almost been tricked into approving. By the time she finished, the clients were staring at her in stunned silence. One of them finally spoke. "Ms. Alvarez, you may have just saved us millions." Douglas's smile cracked. His hands twitched, and for the first time Maria saw it. Not just annoyance, not just prejudice. Fear. Why would a seasoned executive risk lying to investors in broad daylight? Later, as the meeting broke, one of the clients slipped her a note. Just 4 words, written in neat cursive. "Check the missing files." That evening, Maria stayed late. The office was empty, the lights humming. She opened the shared drive, the pitch documents she'd uploaded weeks ago. Page 12 was there. The sensitivity analysis. Clear, correct, unedited. But the metadata told another story. Someone had deleted the file, then re-uploaded a doctored version. Her stomach dropped. Who else knew? Why cover it up? A noise echoed behind her. The creak of a door. She spun around. Douglas stood in the doorway, his face shadowed. "You shouldn't be here, Alvarez," he said quietly. His smile was gone. His voice was cold. Maria's hand hovered over her laptop. "Why did you change my numbers?" she asked. Douglas stepped closer, his eyes hard. "You don't want to know." The office felt like it was shrinking, every fluorescent light buzzing louder. Maria swallowed hard. But before she could respond, Douglas leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "This deal, it's not what you think. And if you keep digging, you won't just lose your job. You'll lose everything." The office was silent. Just Maria, her laptop, and the man who had mocked her in front of everyone hours earlier. Douglas. No jokes this time. No laughter. Just eyes that burned with warning. "You don't want to know," he said again, stepping closer. But Maria did want to know. She needed to know. She glanced back at her screen. The deleted files, the doctored numbers, the metadata that didn't lie. Her heart pounded. "What are you hiding?" she whispered. Douglas leaned in, his voice low and dangerous. "Something that doesn't concern you, unless you want to disappear." Maria didn't sleep that night. She replayed the client's note in her head. Checked the missing files. She couldn't let it go. She printed the original reports, tucked them in her bag, and backed up the evidence to a cloud account under a fake name. If Douglas thought intimidation would silence her, he didn't know her at all. By morning, whispers spread through the office. The clients had called again, not to congratulate Douglas, but to request a follow-up meeting with Maria alone. That had never happened before, and it didn't go unnoticed. At 11 a.m., Maria entered the conference room. The clients were waiting, serious and tense. One of them slid a folder across the table. "These," he said, "are numbers we received directly from your firm last month. They don't match what you presented yesterday." "Why?" Maria flipped through the pages. Her stomach twisted. The same deal, the same models, but the numbers wildly inflated. And worse, her name was signed at the bottom. "Ms. Alvarez," another client pressed. "Did you sign off on these projections?" Maria's throat tightened. That wasn't her signature. It was a forgery. She shook her head. "No, these aren't mine. Someone's trying to make it look like I approved them." The clients exchanged uneasy looks. One finally said, "We thought so. That's why we warned you about the missing files. Someone inside your company isn't just sloppy. They're running a scheme." Maria froze. "Scheme? What kind of scheme?" she asked. The silver-haired client lowered his voice. "We've seen this before. Fake projections, altered reports, executives pocketing millions in bonuses while setting up someone else to take the fall when it collapses. If we hadn't questioned those numbers, you would have been the scapegoat." Maria's hands went cold. Her boss hadn't just mocked her accent. He was preparing to ruin her career. She returned to her desk, tried to act normal, but the walls felt closer now. Every glance from her coworkers felt suspicious. Every email ping felt like a trap. Then, at 2:17 p.m., an email landed in her inbox. No subject, no sender, just one line. "Stop digging or we'll bury you." Her blood ran cold. She closed her laptop, grabbed her bag, and headed for the exit. But when she swiped her badge, the turnstile beeped red. Access denied. She tried again. Same result. Then she looked up. Douglas stood on the mezzanine, staring down at her with a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Maria didn't go home that night. She went to her cousin's apartment across town, shaking as she explained everything. The forged reports, the missing files, the threat. Her cousin, an IT technician, leaned forward. "If they forged your signature, there's a digital trail. Every edit leaves footprints, even if they try to erase them." Maria handed over her laptop. Together, they dug into the metadata of the shared files. And that's when they saw it. The edits hadn't just been made by Douglas. They had been approved by the chief financial officer. Maria's stomach dropped. This wasn't one corrupt boss. This was bigger, higher. "Why would the CFO risk something like this?" she whispered. Her cousin scrolled deeper, frowning. "Because the scheme's bigger than you think. Look, multiple deals, multiple doctored files. It's a pattern. They're siphoning millions into offshore accounts. And they used your login to cover their tracks." Maria's pulse thundered. They weren't just mocking her accent. They were setting her up for fraud. The next morning, Douglas called a staff meeting. His voice boomed with fake cheer. "Big news, everyone. Our Alvarez here will be handling more client accounts. She's really making a name for herself." Some chuckled. Others clapped politely. But Maria froze. He wasn't praising her. He was painting a target on her back. Every fraudulent deal would now have her fingerprints on it. And when it exploded, she would be the one in handcuffs. That night, she stayed late again. The office was dark, quiet. She copied every suspicious file she could find, her hands shaking. But then, footsteps. She ducked under her desk. The footsteps grew closer, heavy, deliberate. Through the gap, she saw polished shoes. Not Douglas's. Different, more expensive. The man stopped by her desk, placed an envelope on top, then walked away without a word. Maria waited until the sound of the elevator faded. Then, with trembling hands, she opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a list of names, senior executives, offshore account numbers, wire transfers, and at the bottom, in bold black ink, "They will blame you unless you expose them first." Her mind raced. Someone inside the company wanted her to fight back. But who? And why help her now? She packed the evidence, heart pounding. She knew what she had to do. Take this outside the firm. Go to the press. Maybe the FBI. But when she reached the lobby, she froze. Two men in dark suits were waiting. Not co-workers. Not clients. Strangers. One of them spoke into a headset. The other adjusted his jacket, and Maria caught the glint of a badge. "Maria Alvarez?" he called. Her throat tightened. What is this about?" she asked. The man held up a file. "You're under investigation for financial fraud. We need you to come with us." Maria's world spun. This was it. The trap had been sprung. She shook her head. No, you don't understand. I have proof. They set me up." "I didn't." The taller man stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Save it for the interrogation." He reached for her arm. And just then, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't go with them. I can get you out. Back exit. Now." Maria's heart stopped. If she stayed, she'd be arrested. If she ran, she'd be hunted. She looked at the men, at the text, at the envelope of evidence burning in her hand. She had seconds to choose. The lobby clock ticked loud. Two men in dark suits stood between Maria and the door, flashing badges that looked too real to question. "Maria Alvarez, you're coming with us." Her chest tightened. Her phone buzzed again. "Back exit. Now." Maria clutched the envelope of evidence tighter. Her pulse hammered. If she went with the men, she'd vanish into a system already stacked against her. If she ran, she risked everything. She made her choice. Maria turned on her heel and bolted. Shouts exploded behind her. "Stop!" Shoes pounded against the marble floor. She raced down a side hallway, heart in her throat. Her badge wouldn't work, but someone had propped the stairwell door open. She slipped inside and slammed it shut. Adrenaline carried her down the flights, 2 steps at a time. Bursting into the alley, she froze. Car idled there. Black sedan, tinted windows. The back door swung open. "Get in!" Maria hesitated, but the men from the lobby were seconds behind. She dove inside. The car screeched away. Behind the wheel sat a woman Maria had never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp suit, eyes like steel. "You don't know me," the woman said, "but I know exactly what they're doing to you, and I won't let them win." Maria clutched the seatbelt. "Who are you?" "Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI." She flashed a badge, real, unmistakable. "We've been investigating Douglas and the CFO for months. Money laundering, offshore fraud, falsified reports. But we couldn't get close." Maria blinked, her mind racing. "So why me?" Torres shot her a look. "Because they made you the fall girl. But what they didn't count on was your courage." For the next 2 hours, Maria poured everything out. The deleted files, the forged signature, the anonymous envelope, the threats. Torres listened, stone-faced. then tapped her finger against the evidence. "This is enough to open the door, but we'll need you to step through it." Maria swallowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," Torres said carefully, "you testify, you hand us every file, you tell your story, and when the walls close in, you hold your ground. We'll protect you, but it has to come from you." Maria stared out the window, her reflection pale and trembling. All her life, her accent had made people dismiss her. Now her voice could bring down an empire. She nodded. "I'll do it." The next morning, Maria walked into the office as if nothing had happened. Douglas was there, grinning smugly, surrounded by executives. "Alvarez," he said loudly, "funny seeing you still here. Thought you'd have packed by now." Maria met his eyes, calm. "Not yet. I have a meeting with the clients this afternoon." His smile faltered. "Without me. They asked for me directly," she said evenly. A few coworkers raised eyebrows. Douglas forced a laugh, but his eyes narrowed. At 2 p.m., the clients gathered again. Maria walked to the front with a folder in her hands. Not her usual reports, but something else. Douglas sat near the back, arms crossed, ready to pounce. Maria took a breath. Her voice was steady, clear. "Yesterday, I showed you the truth about this deal. Today, I need to show you something else." She opened the folder, slid copies across the table. Wire transfers, fake numbers, forged signatures. "This," she said, "is evidence of a scheme within Douglas and Company. Millions funneled offshore, reports altered to cover it. My name was forged to take the blame." The clients leaned forward, scanning the pages. Gasps echoed. Murmurs rose. Douglas shot to his feet. "This is outrageous. She's lying. She's making this up." But before he could finish, the conference doors burst open. FBI jackets, cameras, flashbulbs. Agent Torres strode in, her voice firm. "Actually, Mr. Douglas, she's telling the truth." Chaos exploded. Douglas's face drained of color as agents surrounded him. The CFO was escorted out in handcuffs, shouting protests no one believed. Maria stood frozen as the room transformed. The man who mocked her accent was now silent, powerless, cornered. One client turned to her and said softly, "If you hadn't spoken up, we would have signed everything. You didn't just save us money. You saved us from disaster." For the first time, Maria felt something new in that room: respect. In the weeks that followed, the headlines spread fast. Whistleblower analyst exposes multi-million-dollar fraud. Mocked for her accent, she brought down Wall Street giants. Maria testified before investigators, her voice steady, her evidence airtight. She didn't need to raise her tone. The truth carried louder than any accent ever could. When the verdict came, Douglas and the CFO were sentenced to years in federal prison. Their empire crumbled. Their names, once untouchable, now stained. And Maria, she was offered the position Douglas once held. She declined. Instead, she founded her own consultancy, a firm dedicated to ethical investing, transparency, and giving voices to those who had been silenced. Clients followed. Awards came, but more importantly, dignity was restored. On the day of her company's opening, Maria stood at the podium. Reporters flashed cameras. Young analysts watched with hope. She took a breath, remembering the laughter, the humiliation, the threats, and then she spoke. "They laughed at my accent. They thought it made me weak. But what they didn't understand is that my voice was my power. And when you use your voice to stand for truth, for fairness, for respect, no one can silence you. Not forever." The applause shook the room. In the end, Maria's story reminds us of a powerful truth. Prejudice can try to silence you, but courage and truth will always find a way to rise. Respect, fairness, and justice aren't just ideas. They are choices we must live by, even when it's hard. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to RippleLives for more powerful stories where truth and justice always shine.